Today we will be talking about the Epworth Sleepiness Scale to rate how sleepy a person is. For each situation below, the patient is asked to rate their chance of dozing off using the following scale. 0 will be with never doze. 1 will be a slight chance of dozing. 2 will be a moderate chance of dozing. 3 will be a high chance of dozing. The 8 situations are as follows. 1. Sitting and reading. 2. Watching TV. 3. Sitting inactive in a public place, for example, a theater or meeting. 4. As a passenger in a car for an hour without a break. 5. Lying down to rest in the afternoon when circumstances permit. 6. Sitting and talking to someone. 7. Sitting quietly after lunch without alcohol. 8. In a car while stopped for a few minutes in traffic.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jagbe, and today I'll be talking to you about excessive daytime sleepiness. What is excessive daytime sleepiness? Excessive daytime sleepiness is what a person feels when they feel they're too sleepy during the daytime, and we have a tool that we use to measure that. So normal sleep is about 6 to 10 hours every day, and some people end up spending more than that. Some people end up spending less than that, and they might still be normal because sometimes people fall outside the normal, but most people spend 6 to 10 hours of sleep. Now, excessive daytime sleepiness is when you wake up in the daytime and you're still sleepy. So you've slept throughout the night and you wake up feeling sleepy during the daytime, and you may not have slept throughout the night, but you felt you slept well throughout the night, but during the daytime you're still sleepy. So we have something that we use to measure that. That's what we call the Epworth Sleepiness Scale, which I'll be talking about today. So what's it all about? So basically it was developed by someone, by Dr. Murray Jones, and this was just to see how sleepy someone is, because there was no tool to measure sleepiness, because everyone had their own different ways of measuring sleepiness. So he came up with his own tool to measure sleepiness. Now, and it's a self-reported questionnaire in which you ask 8 basic questions on daily situations that they expect, that things that happen every day to you, and they ask you that, how do you feel in such a situation? Now, the different types, the different answers you can give is that I don't feel sleepy in that situation, I'll score you a 0. There's a slight chance that I'll be sleepy in such a situation, I'll earn you a 1. There's a moderate chance that I'll be sleepy in that situation, I will earn you a 2. And 3 will be a high chance of falling sleepy or feeling sleepy or dozing off in that situation. Now, what does that mean? Basically, the way I look at it with patients is that if it's something that happens every day, that you are put in that situation, every time you're put in that situation, that's a high chance. If it happens once or twice in that situation in a week, then that's a moderate. But if it happens, once in a week, then that's a slight chance. That's where I put it. But sometimes some of these situations you don't experience it every day. For example, when people say you feel sleepy after lunch, some people say, hey, I'm at work, so I can't afford to feel sleepy. But every time on the weekend that you are presented with a chance that after lunch that you're not having to work, you feel sleepy, then that will make it that every time in that situation, I'm put in that situation where I have the chance and I'm not restricted by the environment around me, that makes it a higher chance. So the 8 situations that they put, they ask you about are: 1, if you are sitting and reading, do you feel sleepy? If you are watching TV, do you feel sleepy? If you are left inactive in a public place, do you feel sleepy? If you are a passenger in a car for an hour, do you feel sleepy? Do you go lay down in the afternoon if you have the chance? When you're talking to people, do you feel sleepy? After lunch, do you feel sleepy? Or if you are in a car and you are stopped in traffic, do you feel sleepy? So we'll take it one at a time. Let's take out sitting and reading. So a lot of my patients say they don't read, and they say, hey, what am I reading for? I have other things occupy me. So sometimes the number one question is, when you're sitting and reading, do you feel sleepy? They say, hey, I don't read at all. So you ask them that, I ask them that when you're on your phone and you're doing things on your phone, playing games on your phone or things, do you feel sleepy? And sometimes some people will say, hey, I'm on my phone or I'm on the computer doing some work on the computer, and next thing I find myself nodding off, and that can be at work, that can be at home, and when it's not bedtime and this is happening. The second question is, when you're watching TV, when you're watching TV, do you feel sleepy? Yeah. Sometimes people tell me that the TV is watching them, that the TV starts to watch them when they are watching TV, and the remote falls from their hand, and their family member comes around and says that, hey, you just fell asleep while you're watching TV. So that would be a 3 in such a situation. If that happens once in a blue moon, that will be a 1 chance. And if that happens maybe in a week, you have 2 or 3 chances. Then that's a slight chance that it happens. But it's not like everyday thing. Every time you are presented with watching TV. The next thing is that if you're sitting inactive in the public place. Now, what's inactive in the public place? What's a public place? The mention is like if you are in a movie theater, that's a public place. I tell my patients that if I left you in this room for an hour, will I find you nodding off? Some people will tell me that if you left the room right now, before you came in to see me in the room, I was already feeling sleepy. So those are high chances. This shows that that's a high chance that you're going to be sleepy in such a situation. Now, if you're a passenger in a car for an hour, and what I tell people, because you see people, you ask them if you're a passenger in the car for an hour, would you fall asleep? They say no. But if I ask them, if someone that you trust is driving, because a lot of people don't trust people that are driving them around, so they're like, oh, no, I'm not going to fall asleep because I don't trust this person. But if they trust the person that they are driving with, will they fall asleep? And most of them at that point in time will say, hey, if I trust this driving, I'll nod off in such a situation. So that's another reason. So do you go later in the afternoon if you have a chance? When I talk to people, do you go later in the afternoon? They're like, no. Why? Because they're at work. So if you're at work, you can't go later in the afternoon. But I'll ask them on the weekends when you're not working. And that's a distinction, because if you ask me, will I go later after lunch? I have work to do. I'm not going to lay down after lunch. Who's going to? But if you have the chance, but if on the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, in the afternoon, when you're done with wherever you've gone to during the daytime, you go lay down in the afternoon, and there's a high chance, if you do it every weekend or if you do it every day, then there's a high chance that you do it. So that's the way to think about it. When you're talking to someone now, sitting and talking to people say, oh, a few of my patients say yes, they fall asleep while they're talking to people. But some people are like, oh, it happens when I'm on the phone. So that's another way of asking. When you're on the phone, you're talking to someone on the phone, do you find yourself nodding off? Because the object is to say that if you're in deep conversation with someone, either the person is there or the person is not there, you find yourself nodding off. So if the person is there, like you're in front of a person, or if you're on the phone, that's where I look at it. If you're on the phone with someone and you feel sleepy while you're on the phone, then that's a high chance. Okay. Then after lunch, after lunch is the question that most people say yes to. I say yes to it after all the time. That do I feel sleepy after lunch? Yeah, there's a slight chance or a moderate chance for me to feel sleepy after lunch, because even a regular meal. So that's why a lot of people have a light lunch. But if they have a regular lunch, they'll feel sleepy after lunch. So that's the question there. Then in the car, number 8, in the car stopped in traffic. Now that's difficult to talk to some people depending on where they live, because in some places there are no stoplights. So if you are talking to someone that has no stoplights in the town or the village or wherever they live, and you ask them, do you feel sleepy when you're at the stop? Yeah, they don't have enough time to feel sleepy. But if they live in the big city, and I'm sure some of you, whenever you're driving behind someone and the light changes to green and you're like, oh, what's wrong with him? You think they're on their phone. No, they just nodded off. They're not on their phone. They just nodded off. So you have to hit the horn and hope he's not angry that you are hitting the horn, So that's a way to think about it. So, and those are the 8 questions. So there are different ways to, you can explain it. You can think about it, because in some of these situations, as I said, some people don't read. Some people live in small towns where they don't have traffic. And inactive in a public place sometimes might be church. So do you nod off in church? Yes, I nod off in church all the time. That's one way to think about it. So when you have all this, you now put your score together. If you say you have in three of the situations, if you are in three of the situations, if you have a high chance of falling asleep, you're already sleepy. You're more sleeping than the average person. They call it mild sleepiness. So between 8 and 9, that's mild sleepiness. Between 10 and 15 is moderate sleepiness, and between 16 and 24 is severe sleepiness. So depending on the situation with the person, someone that has heart disease, someone that has high blood pressure, someone that has been involved in multiple vehicle accidents. Once you are sleepy, you're sleepy because and you need to be evaluated. Now, if you are very sleepy, like you're scoring out of eight of those questions, you have everything, or if you have at least 5 of those that you have everything that you say a high chance, then you have severe sleepiness, and at this time you surely need an evaluation. Now, with experience, some people will score 7 on the Epworth Sleepiness Scale, and when you do their sleep study, they have severe sleep apnea, for example. But sometimes they don't feel it, and sometimes this question is how you feel about yourself. So sometimes if you don't feel that bad, you don't feel you're that sleepy, but people around you might see you as sleepy. And sometimes when I'm asking all these questions, the Epworth questions, I'm asking the spouse or the person that lives with them, because some people say, oh, I'm not that sleepy, and they're like, no, you're that sleepy, because some people don't perceive themselves as being sleepy. So you just have to know your audience, and sometimes you need someone there to help with answering this question. So when we have a high score, like a Epworth Sleepiness Scale of 24, then at that time we go digging and say, hey, let's see, and we ask other questions. We try and delineate if they have parasomnia that's keep them up at night. Do they have sleep apnea? Do they have insomnia? Do they have things like narcolepsy? You ask questions about cataplexy. You ask questions, so you keep on digging. After you've done the Epworth, you keep on digging to say, why is this person sleepy? And it can be insufficient sleep. The person can say, oh, I have only 4 hours of sleep every night. And the 4 hours of sleep every night is not enough for this person. So at that point in time, it becomes a problem. And then you need to deal with that. So after asking all those questions, you can always the limitation of this thing is that it's as I said, it's subjective, and you have to ask someone around. The other limitation is that the person might not be honest about what they are telling you because of how they feel. Person can be a policeman, and a policeman cannot afford to be sleepy on the job. The person can be a truck driver, cannot afford to be sleepy on the job. The person can be a doctor, and can't afford to be sleepy on his job. So you have to get the honesty and say, hey, if you tell me all these things, I can help you. And if you can't help, if you don't tell me, I can't help you. And doctors sometimes have to use their clinical judgment. You walk into a room, the person is nodding off. That person is really sleepy. If he says, oh, when I'm left alone, I'm not sleepy, then you find out that, hey, it's not congruent with what I'm seeing. I'm seeing you. Or sometimes I'm talking to the patient, and the patient is nodding off, and I ask the same question, and it tells me that, oh, I'm not sleepy when I'm talking to people. Then you realize that it's not congruent. Your response is not congruent with what I'm seeing. So all other things, you have to always take that into consideration and not just take what the patient is saying. So the good thing about the sleepiness scale, Epworth Sleepiness Scale, is that it's a quick and useful tool. It helps with your management of sleep disorders, and you have to use it in conjunction with other things that you see with the person. In conjunction with other things you see with the person, someone has fell asleep while driving. And the Epworth Sleepiness Scale says that their There are 4 out of 24. That's not congruent. So you have to use that with your other clinical assessment. So I'd like to thank you for listening to this short talk about Epworth Sleepiness Scale. You need to talk to your sleep doctor whenever if you do this testing, or if you do this tool, you try it on yourself and you find out that, hey, I fall into this category of being a sleepy person, then they can help you out. Thank you, and I'll talk to you on some other topics. This is Dr. Jagbe, Miss Speed Long and Sleep Doc.